Now let's bring you up to speed with those stories that have been making headlines in the last 12 hours. And we start off with a probe where the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is pursuing 3 unnamed officers at the National Hospital Insurance Fund that carted away 30 million shillings during the height of the 2022 transition period. The 3, according to EACC, gained access to the fund system and amended members' details to siphon the money. In a report submitted by EACC to the newly established Social Health Insurance Fund, the theft happened exactly 23 days before Kenyans went into the 2022 general election.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission took 2 months to interrogate the National Hospital Insurance Fund systems following claims of loss of public funds.
Some of the key findings of the systems review include weak framework for corruption prevention in the fund.
The damning report by the anti-graft body revealed numerous third-party unauthorized access to the systems, leading to loss of public funds. For instance, barely weeks to the August 2022 polls, 3 unnamed staffers at NHIF irregularly amended members' details, occasioning a loss of 30 million shillings of taxpayers' monies.
Management of third-party access to the system, aligning user access with the respective staff operational responsibilities, because these are some of the areas we identified and found weaknesses.
The report further highlighted that between 2019-2023, 153 claims were rejected without explanations.
The law provides that we will give them an opportunity to go to be employed by Social Health Authority. However, there is going to be a vetting process to ensure that only those officers who are clean, who are not corrupt, who have not been found in any corrupt practices are the ones who are going to employ in the new Social Health Authority.
The people who may have been in that previous system who are found to be suspects of corruption deals, those people will still be pursued in their individual capacities, irrespective of whether they are left out of the new authority or they join the new authority.
Further, the detailed investigation report has exposed the systemic malpractices in contracting for various packages for the healthcare providers that were not defined. Investigations revealed that the sampled healthcare provider's application took 18 to 50 months to receive approval to provide healthcare services under the fund.
The figure you've been given is 20 to 50 months. Now that was also inducing corruption, making sure that if you have a facility, you want to bribe the officers so that you can be empaneled.
Public healthcare providers were not assessed for recontracting, while some operated without valid contracts due to delays in processing their requests. According to the report, instances of approvals for payments of claims for procedures not actually undertaken were very common in Buruburu and Meru branches.
I want to assure you that the systems, procedures that the Social Health Authority is going to develop is going to ensure that the funds, the public funds or the beneficiary funds are taken care of.
But we have always maintained that the only way to be able to deter fraud is to ensure that people don't benefit from it in the first place. So we have to be able to enhance our fraud detection systems and fraud prevention systems.
It remains to be seen if the new Social Health Insurance Fund will be able to implement all the recommendations made by EACC in the coming days, given that they're supposed to take full operation by July this year. Abdiaziz Hashim from the NHIF headquarters.
Well, and we'll be keeping tabs. It seems that that particular money heist was well, planned and executed at a time when we were all looking at what the political scene was looking like during the 2022 general elections. We'll be keeping tabs on that. Now, day 1 of the Yala meeting, and President William Ruto addressed the East African Legislative Assembly in Nairobi and asked members to fully implement the political federation, the 4th pillar of the East African integration that allows member states to establish a regional force for enhancing peace. President Ruto also used the meeting to vouch for the candidature of Raila Odinga for the African Union Commission chairperson.
At the Parliament buildings in Nairobi, President William Ruto inspected a guard of honor before making his maiden address to the third session of the 5th East African Legislative Assembly. President Ruto hailing the East African community as a magnet for investment.
With a combined GDP of US dollars 350 billion, a population of approximately 350 million, and an expansive area of 5 million square kilometers, the EAC member states are an attractive investment destination.
While boasting unity and integration of the region, the president challenged member states to fully implement the political federation to have the region have a standby force.
We now have in place protocols on defense as well as peace and security, together with the EAC Mutual Defense Pact, which has already been concluded in Kenya, in Uganda, and in Burundi. And we already made a decision last year in Arusha that that process must be concluded in the other remaining states by June this year.
President Ruto called on the EAC states to remove trade barriers for easy movement of goods and the people and help white out the narrative that Africa was a continent of the poor, driven by poverty and diseases, to one of the immense opportunities.
The story is not about disease, it's not about conflict, it's not about poverty. It is about great potential that we have. It is about the opportunities that we have. It is about the investment that is awaiting, and position our continent as the only place where the next industrial revolution is going to happen.
The head of state revealing that EAC member states had consulted to sponsor a single candidate for the African Union Commission chairmanship as the term of Musa Faki of Chad comes to an end next year.
It is going to be the turn for East Africa to provide the chair of the Africa Union. We have sat down in the spirit of the East African community. We have consulted as heads of state from the East African community together, and we have agreed to sponsor one candidate.
The Assembly last sat in Kenya in 2018. The East African Legislative Assembly will conduct 8 sittings in Nairobi for 3 weeks, with conflict in DR Congo being among the issues expected to be tabled for discussion. Give us Manyara at the Parliament buildings, Nairobi.
Well, called to speak in one voice in as far as the AU chairperson's quest is concerned. Question is, what happens to Somalia's candidate? Have they agreed to step down just as Jakaya Kikwete did so? Well, we'll be keeping tabs on that. That was just day 1. Today's day 2 of the meetings right here in Nairobi. Now, 2 people died Tuesday after a mid-air collision, which involved a Cessna aircraft belonging to 99's Flying School and a Dash 8 plane belonging to Safari Link Aviation Limited. 44 people escaped unharmed in the mid-morning accident. As Joseph Wahungu reports, police in collaboration with the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority have commenced investigations into the incident.
Debris of an aircraft belonging to 99's Flying School strewn all over inside Nairobi National Park. This was the aftermath of a mid-air collision involving the plane and an aircraft belonging to Safari Link Aviation Limited. Our visit to 99's Flying School at Wilson Airport confirming the incident, with the management of the institution who declined to speak on camera, also confirming the deaths of a trainee pilot and an instructor, and that their families were being briefed. In a statement, Safari Link Aviation Limited stated that its Diani-bound plane with 39 passengers and 5 crew on board was forced to turn back to Wilson Airport after experiencing a loud bang shortly after takeoff at 9:45 a.m. The statement further confirmed that the plane landed safely with no casualties reported. Meanwhile, Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, KCAA, in a statement has said that a multi-agency investigation is being carried out by Air Accident Investigation Department, AAID, and the police to establish the cause of the accident.
Investigations are underway. Now, Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakumacia has urged medical doctors to remain patient as the ministry resolves the delayed posting of interns. Nakumacia said discussions with union officials are ongoing to resolve the matter, a day after the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union issued a 7-day strike notice to demand the interns' absorption.
A day after medical practitioners took to the streets of Nairobi to protest the delayed posting of interns, among other grievances, Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakumacia has responded, urging the medical professionals to be patient as the ministry addresses the matter.
Mine is to ask for their patience as we finalize. I know they are anxious about the posting, but once we resolve the outstanding issues, once we bring everybody on the table to discuss, and there's already progress, we will be able to communicate to them before the time that they have given us. We'll be able to communicate to them a solution.
She emphasized the need for dialogue between the ministry and the doctors' union, stating that a strike will not solve the issue.
A solution will only be found when we sit on the table and discuss as all stakeholders. Remember, we have county governments, they're stakeholders in this matter. We have the Ministry of Labour, they're stakeholders in this matter. We have National Treasury, they're stakeholders in this matter. Ministry of Health is just but a very small stakeholder in this matter.
Nakumacia further said the ministry was sourcing funding for the interns, posting and trainers to supervise them.
And one of the important pillars of universal health coverage is health workers. So there's no way I can ignore them. There's no way the ministry can ignore them. We are going to do all that we need to do to ensure that we have enough, sufficient and adequate health workers, including the interns.
Nakumacia, however, emphasized the importance of internship centers meeting specific requirements, including the presence of medical officers, specialists, equipment and health commodities for medical interns.
To maximize concessional borrowing for external financing while minimizing commercial borrowing as a strategy to prevent the country from sinking into a debt crisis. The National Assembly, while considering the 2024 medium-term debt management strategy, implored the National Treasury to spend within its budget to reduce the fiscal deficit. The Treasury projects a reduction of fiscal deficit for the financial year 2024-2025.
With the public debt stock standing at a historical high of 11.2 trillion shillings, members of the National Assembly debated the debt management strategy proposed by the National Treasury, while MPs allied to the government lauded the projected reduction in fiscal deficit for the financial year 2024-2025. The minority party took issue with the National Executive for continuing to borrow despite the absorption rate being low.
If the National Treasury discovers within the year that our revenues are either not performing or improving, then it is imperative that they also review the expenditure side of our budget.
Each borrowing must have a purpose that is serving and an approval.
The government aims to maximize concessional borrowing for external financing, while minimizing commercial borrowing as a strategy to cushion the country from a debt crisis.
We were told that borrowing, in fact, they demonized the previous head of state, and apparently borrowing was supposedly a very bad thing. And now we are continuing to borrow. We are planning to borrow. We are setting up ourselves to borrow some more money.
The deficit has come down from 886 billion, and we have come down to around 703.9 billion shillings, which is just around 3.9% deficit to GDP ratio, and which is a very good path, Honorable Speaker, when it comes to managing our appetite to borrow.
The National Treasury estimates next year's expenditures will be 4.1 trillion shillings against a projected revenue of 3.4 trillion shillings. The legislators want the National Treasury to explain measures to reduce domestic debt service burden. The lawmakers further want the government to renegotiate and disburse external loans.
We are just paying interest on something because we went and we agreed we will borrow, but even the borrowing has not arrived in the country.
We need to seriously consider having a public debt act so that it can legislate and strictly seal any loopholes where the Public Finance Management Act does not cover.
Meanwhile, the National Assembly has expedited the consideration of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill in a bid to hasten the reconstitution of the electoral agency. Debate on the bill is set to commence Wednesday, following the reduction in the publication period of the proposed law.
The head of public service, Felix Koskei, has raised the red flag over runway graft, nepotism and employment of unqualified and inexperienced staff by county governments. Speaking during the ongoing Intergovernmental Relations Symposium in Naivasha, Nakuru County, Koskei said the employment of incompetent individuals has led to increased cases of corruption, wastage of public resources and low absorption of development funds in the devolved units.
The second day of the Intergovernmental Relations Symposium in Naivasha, Nakuru County. It is here that Head of Public Service Felix Koskei put county governments on the spot over failure to deal decisively with the dragon of corruption.
Corruption is too much. It is becoming unbearable.
Koskei noted that graft was ravaging counties, leading to poor service delivery. He alleged that fake contractors with the support of county officers were seeking payments for works done by the national government.
Roads that are repaired by national government, county governments comes to be.
The Chief of Staff also decried cases of nepotism, noting that the majority of counties employed workers from the same community.
You can even secure some few, about 30% critical positions, and then you put people who are experienced. And the county will run, absorption will be okay, issues of wastage will not be there, corruption will go down because they know what to do and how to do it.
Speaking at the same forum, Devolution Principal Secretary Teresia Mbaika called for collaboration between the national and county governments in resolving disputes.
One of the studies by World Bank and the findings is that we had a weak intergovernmental relations. And through the State Department of Devolution and other stakeholders, we have worked on a program with the bank, World Bank, whereby some of these issues are going to be addressed.
The Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, IGRTC, is currently working on the final report on the transfer of all devolved functions in line with the Constitution.
When we transfer functions and we transfer resources, we would expect that the ministries, departments and agencies involved will need to reorganize themselves. And at the same time, the county governments should also see that as an opportunity also to review their structures, their establishment, their staffing levels, also as a basis for also reviewing their competencies.
So employment of incompetent persons at the county level or the county devolved units is abhorring or rather prohibiting well use of development funds. Well, now that takes us to matters business, and the question is, how often do you use your mobile banking app? Well, a report by the Kenya Bankers Association indicates that more Kenyans are opting to use mobile banking for banking services as opposed to visiting banking halls. Now, that particular survey by the Kenya Bankers Association attributes this to increased digitization that has also seen the access to banking services for those with special needs increase to 93%.
Digital banking has become increasingly important in the banking industry as more Kenyans prefer mobile banking. Online banking is the second most preferred channel at 24.6%. A slight uptick compared to the 23.3% preference in 2022. On the other hand, card payments preference stood at 7.1%, while agency banking preference among customers stood at 6.9%, with cash deposit machines the least preferred channel.
This trend continues to be driven by high digital adoption among the banking population, supported by easy-to-use and reliable banking services available on the market, and a growing level of mobile and internet penetration.
93.5% of customers with special needs were able to access banking services easily due to high digitization carried out by lenders.
The underway Banking Industry Persons with Disability Accessibility Project, which is being coordinated by the KBA, continues to enable banks to put measures in place that will ensure full and independent access to banking services, especially by the people living with the disabilities.
53.2% of Kenyans hold 2 or more accounts in 2023, compared to 48.2% in 2022.
The driver for multi-banking is that customers are able to get the variety of services available. A customer may not be able to get a service from one bank and they'll be able to get it from another bank. So by combining these relationships, they're able to get full satisfaction.
Cooperative Bank of Kenya was the overall winner of the Banking Industry Customer Satisfaction Survey. Coop Bank was also named the best bank in the Customer Satisfaction Survey in the Tier 1 category, with Family Bank and ABC topping in Tier 2 and 3 respectively.
For every 150 shillings men earn, women earn 50 shillings less. This is according to the latest World Bank Group report, which further indicates a massive, wider than expected global gender gap for women in the workplace. As Warimo Njenga narrates, in the 190 economies surveyed, no country provides equal opportunities for women, not even the wealthiest economies.
The latest Women, Business and Law report by the World Bank recognizes the progress made over the decades in enacting equal opportunity laws for women. However, women still enjoy less than 2/3 of the legal rights available to men and not 3/4 as previously. The report, which expanded the scope of its analysis, adding to indicators, safety from violence and access to childcare services, shows women on average enjoy just 64% of the legal protections that men do, a decline from the previous estimate of 77%. When these additional indicators taken into consideration, no country provides equal opportunity for women, not even just one high-income economy. The report further highlights a massive gender gap for women in the global workplace, which they say is much wider than previously thought, and that women earn just 77 cents for every dollar paid to men. For instance, out of 190 economies, 98 economies have enacted legislation mandating equal pay for women for work of equal value. Countries such as Jordan, Malaysia, Oman, Sierra Leone, among others, have enacted 10 reforms mandating equal pay for work for equal value, or lifting restrictions on a woman's ability to work in industrial or dangerous jobs. 35 economies, fewer than 1 out of every 5, have adopted pay transparency measures or enforcement mechanisms to address the pay gap. Experts perceive that approximately half of women in the examined economies have equality when it comes to pay and access to high-paying jobs. Chief Economist of the World Bank Group and Senior Vice President for Development Economist Gill says discriminatory laws and practices are preventing women from working or starting businesses on equal footing with men, noting that closing the gap could raise global gross domestic product, essentially doubling the global growth rate over the next decade. The implementation gap highlights how much hard work lies ahead, even for countries that have been instituting equal opportunity laws. Togo, for instance, has been a standout among sub-Saharan economies, enacting laws that give women roughly 77% of the rights available to men.
Now, that particular report also sets the ball rolling for a conversation coming up next with none other than Victor Law, as he engages ladies who are seated at the policy-making table. The statistics are not so good, especially when we address issues of women. And when you say he, she, I'm saying he, Victor, yes, when we're addressing she matters. These are women issues. We're looking at the International Women's Day that is coming up on Friday. When it comes to law, according to that particular report, women only enjoy 81% of legal rights. That's another thing we want to see and hear from the ladies who are going to be in the panel this morning, how they want that addressed going forward. Areas of focus when you look at matters of parity, according to that report: health, education, workplace, and also gender-based violence. So that puts a couple of matters in news this morning. Just to remind you the results, and as far as the Champions League round of 16 is concerned, we had Bayern Munich squaring out with Lazio and scoring 3 against nil for Lazio. And also we had PSG squaring it out with Real Sociedad, where PSG scored 2 against a solitary goal for Real. Talking about today's matches, we are having at around 11 tonight, Manchester City is going to be taking on FC Copenhagen, while Real Madrid is going to be squaring it out with RB Leipzig. Well, choose your match, enjoy the game. Have a great day ahead.